What's up, guys? This is Urijah Faber, the California Kid, here with Greg Connolly, serial entrepreneur, founder of Trifecta Nutrition. We're talking about everything under the sun, fitness, entertainment, and of course, business, making that money. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Calicast, here with Greg Connolly, and a special guest today, a very dangerous man in real life, but also on the movie set. We're talking about Alain Moussi.
Hello.
Did I say that correct? Let me hear the French version of it.
Alain Moussi.
Alain Moussi. Alain Moussi.
Alain Moussi. No, it's good. I'm actually impressed. That's pretty. It's pretty good.
Thank you. And
I've heard them all. You know that, right? The best one I've heard is Alain Moussi. I thought that was great.
You can pull that off.
Hey, listen.
When you can kick above a 5 foot or 6 foot 10 man's head, you know you can handle being called Alain Moussi.
You've got that. You've got that self confidence.
Yeah,
no matter
exactly.
What.
He's not afraid of a little feminine twist to the name on occasion.
Oh,
but
God, no.
Thanks again for coming out. You know, we always are looking for special guests out on our team, and today we had some cool tricks. Ended with some movie stunts. For those who don't know, Alain is one of the most skilled mixed martial artists on the big set, and he's just finished his second kickboxing movie, and it was incredible. I got to see it. Mike Tyson's in it. A bunch of the UFC folks are in it. I mean, it was about as star-studded as you can get, and some action scenes that are unbelievable. So. How was that?
Thank you very much. I mean, that's like that's great. That's
the best
such an amazing statement. I want to quote that. That's awesome.
We'll put that on the back of the movie cover.
Damn, you should. That was well spoken. Well spoken. I love it.
So let's get into that just a little bit. I mean, first and foremost, you're French Canadian.
I am.
And I was trying to figure out. I've had a chance to meet wife and kids, and it's cool to think that you're speaking French on a day-to-day basis, but you come over here and adjust into us. I wish I had that ability to be bilingual. Have you ever done any films in the French?
I've never done any films in French. No, everything's been in English, actually, because I grew up in French. My dad's Lebanese, from Lebanon, and my mom's from Montreal, so I learned French first, and then my neighbors spoke English, so then that's how I learned English at the beginning. And then when I started in the film industry, I actually had a lot of a much thicker accent, kind of like GSP, but not as much.
That's pretty
not
intense.
as much. No, that's it wasn't that intense, but it was closer to that. And as soon as I got into film, I started working on it a lot, and just to get rid of as much as I could and have more of a standard American accent. But there's still something there. But
yeah, we can still hear the Canadian twang in there.
Got
it.
So do you, I always wonder about that. Are you like, are you thinking like talk like John Wayne, or like how do you get like the quote unquote American accent mixed in there?
No, you know what is, and interestingly enough, it's when I just fixed some inflections, and I worked with a dialect coach, and that's what they told me. They said there is the inflection that you change. In French, things go up at the end. In English, things go down. So that was the first thing. And then this dialect coach had me work with a popsicle stick to actually, you have to change the position of the tongue when you speak in English. So in French, the tongue is actually forward more. In English, it's more backwards. So you have to train yourself to speak without touching the stick that's in your mouth.
Oh, that's a trip.
I swear, it's very different. And you're saying these different lines and words, and the whole goal, as soon as you go to English, you try to keep the tongue back there, which actually lowers your voice as well. And as soon as you switch to French, si je commence à parler français, automatiquement, the voice goes up. So it's interesting, once you start realizing these differences, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean,
I never thought about tongue position. That's even more sophisticated than I thought.
Usually, it's under another tongue position is all about another context. It's not in this context at all.
I was like, all the jokes we could make off of this that would make this extra.
In today's movie industry, with all the scandal going on, tongue position's been a hot topic these days. Weintraub and the crew. Oh my gosh, man! But yeah, like I said, I got a chance to see the movie. I got to see the movie before it came out, and now it's out, of course, and having massive success. And one of the coolest scenes that I saw was a battle between you and Mike Tyson. I mean, how was that? Was it true? I heard a little rumor that he may have clocked you once or twice.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw an open hand slap that looked like it could put out a 7-foot man, but You just took it, shook it, and kept going.
Yeah, man. Imagine. So I meet Mike that morning, and that's the scene we're about to shoot. We're about to shoot a fight scene. So I say, hey, Mike, I meet him for the first time. And obviously, I'm a little intimidated just because of who he is in a way. But he was so nice. That lasted about 2 minutes. We get into it, and the first thing we're shooting is the fight scene. The first move is the slap. Now, where I have to throw a jab, I jab at him. He blocks, and he's fast. His hands are so fast.
Still, yeah.
So, and they're shooting this with a high-speed camera because they want to capture the ripples in my face in this slap. So we go one, and then what I started realizing watching the playback, because we do it once and again, and I'm flinching, and you can see it on the high-speed camera because they catch you right away before anything else happens. And I'm like, I have to force myself not to flinch, or else it's like I'm telegraphing something's about to happen. So we do it again and again. And so I got slapped like 20 times, and just like
by Mike Tyson.
I swear, man. And these were not like light slaps. They wanted it to be like full hand slap because they wanted ripples on my face. So sometimes the slap would work, then I would flinch, and then I would not flinch, but then the slap wasn't hard enough. So we did it like 20 times. I swear, it was a trip. And then for the whole fight, all the contact of the body is real. Like you have real hits. We even had this again with the high-speed cameras where he's just pummeling me in the chest over and over again, and you just see like his knuckles dig in. Now, obviously, it's done with control, or I would not be here today. But it's still like right in there and real hits. So this whole fight was about real hits nonstop.
By Iron Mike Tyson.
Iron Mike Tyson. And then later on in one of the fights, I zigged, he zagged, and I got clipped in the mouth. Once too,
man.
But again, he's got good control, I guess, because it didn't knock me out. So I probably just got about 10% of whatever he could output. But still, I got clocked in the mouth with Mike Tyson, and I'm still here.
That's pretty iconic.
I know. I was gonna say that's a life box.
Check that one off the list.
Bucket
Get punched by Mike Tyson.
Bucket list. It's
It's funny. I Pride used to be massive in Japan, and Quentin Rampage Jackson, I don't know if you guys know who that is.
Yeah.
Rampage, he howls before and everything, and he was huge in Japan. And he used to line up, the Japanese would line up and ask him to slap them. So he would go down the line and just slap the Japanese fans. And it was like an honor, to get slapped by Rampage Jackson.
Oh my God.
Smack, and just line him up and knock him down. It's pretty funny to think about,
Imagine being Rampage in that moment, saying people are lining up for me to slap them
in
the face. Imagine how you feel.
He's like, I made it.
Right? That's how you know you made it.
I made it. That's it.
That's funny.
Incredible.
And it's funny, what you're talking about, that control that is taking place. Mike, obviously, as a professional, knows how to pull punches, go hard or go light. He's skillful there. But you, before you're an actor, were a stuntman. That in itself is an industry that is business. And, this podcast is about business, entertainment, sport, martial arts, and everything in between. And that is like a rock star type of I guess career, you could say. I know a lot of these folks that have done a little bit here and there, but the guys that are career stuntmen, they have it good. You're getting paid pretty good. You're going to exotic places. You're, a lot of times you're these athletic, tough guys, and there's got to be some ladies involved with that. Before you're married, of course.
It's an interesting world, I'll tell you. It's really interesting.
Yeah, how does that work, and how'd you get involved in that?
Well, so I, a friend of mine in Montreal got into stunt work right around when they finished 300, and then when they were about to shoot Immortals in Montreal, he called me up and he said, "Listen, I know the fight coordinator who happens to be Jean Frenette, who was the world champion in karate." So Jean was the fight coordinator, and said, "I'll introduce you to him. They need guys like you in the film, so it might be a good way in." So we get there, I audition, and actually my audition, I get there for a training session, which is what I understood I was going to do. So after the warm-up, he brings everybody in this room with the tatami, and he says, "Okay, guys, sit down. Alain's going to do an audition for us." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, so what do you want me to do?" He said, "Well, anything." Now, if I ask you to do anything,
what?
So you got to be on the spot, say, "Okay, what does he want to see?" Because he says anything. So I'm like, "Okay, well, what do you want to see? Acrobatics and stuff?" He said, "Yeah, everything you know." Everything you know.
Yeah,
so everything you know. So I'm like, all right, that's it. Boom. So I flip, I jump, I run on the wall, and I flip, and I start jumping kicks, and I take a bow and I start spinning it. I jump on my friend, start doing acrobatic throwing, judo style, wrestling style, everything I can think of. I threw it out there for 3 minutes. I did not stop moving. And at the end, I was winded. I couldn't move anymore. I was like, okay, anything else? He says, are you done? And I said, well, I think so.
I have,
says,
I have more.
Right? And I'm like, unless you want to see anything else. And he's like, no, it's fine. Okay, good. We're done now. So, okay, guys, let's practice. And that was it. And then at the end of the workout, we did a whole bunch of stuff. He says, listen, Alain, you can come back next time. And that was my in to start working out with the stunt team, with Onset Stunts in Montreal. And then as we were prepping, we were doing all the previs for Immortals, which is previs is concept fights that they shoot to get approved by the director and the stunt coordinator. And we did that. Now, the stunt coordinator, when he saw me on screen, Jean had me play the hero role because of the same size as Henry Cavill. So in all the previs, I was playing the hero. The stunt coordinator said, who's this guy? And Jean said, well, he's the guy working out with us now. And, he says, is he available? Does he have the right skill set? He says, yeah, sure, I'll vouch for him. So Jean vouched for me, although I had no experience on set at the time. And in the end, I remember the day they announced, said, okay, it was the day we came in, we knew they were going to say who's on the core team. The core team is a team that's going to work out all the fight sequences. They're going to work out for 3 months before we start shooting the movie. And usually you play a multitude of bad guys, every time with a mask, and you end up in many different scenes.
Right.
So they announced the whole core team, which was 12. Now they announced 11 people. In the end, I'm like, you know what? At least I got to work out with the guys. I'm happy. I was just happy to be there. It was great. And last but not least, to double Henry Cavill is going to be Alain Moussi. You're like, what? Excuse me, what?
Yeah.
I'm going to double the hero. Like, that means that's like the most
you're
important
star.
role.
Yeah.
You're like the number one double.
The star of the action
shadow.
scene. Yeah, exactly.
You're the star's ninja.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it's a very important position. Most of the time goes to very experienced stuntmen, not the brand new stuntmen. Usually your first job is like you're bad guy number 3, get shot, you fall on the ground, and you won't work for the next 4 months until you hustle enough to get in. This, I worked for 6 months straight. I did all the prep. It was like a stunt boot camp. It was amazing.
Is it true that the riskier the stunt, the higher you get paid?
Yeah, you have the different.
But how do they judge that? And I mean, whose risk are we going by? Like, who's scared of what, or like,
It's like there's things they consider like a standard thing. If you're doing a basic fight scene or you're doing like a basic fall or whatever, that's it. But let's say you have to fall 8 feet to the ground. Well, that's more dangerous and it requires a very specific skill set. And there's way more danger involved. So because of that, you're getting a bump or an adjustment to the pay. So they give you a bonus based on how many times you have to do it, because every time you do it, there's a risk factor there. Right. So the more risk you take, the more expertise it takes to do what you're about to do, the more valuable you are.
Gotcha. That's interesting. And Greg, I was having a talk before we got here kind of about the business of the stunt world. And, unlike the fight world, there's like unions and there's SAG minimums and there's all these things. There's residuals. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, you can make a lot of money as a stunt guy, but then as they play those, the CDs get bought or the DVDs get bought and money keeps generating off these things, then everybody down the line gets paid, which is cool. It's interesting. And the other thing is, the world is changing. Now we're going digital a lot. There's less CDs. So there's kind of like a gray area of how that's transitioning. What is the current status of getting paid in that world?
Now, I don't know how it works in the US. Like, I know how it works, like with the residuals and stuff. Now, I don't know what the status now with all the digital media, like for Netflix or for Hulu or these productions that aren't putting out DVDs and they're not selling any actual widgets. They're literally putting out on digital and they're on they're membership based. So when they're doing the original content, they're not selling distribution. They're actually just outputting it on their own distribution. So now they have to remodel the way residuals are given out or paid out based on these new this new distribution.
And
model.
Have they done that yet?
I know they're in the process of doing it, actually. I don't know what the end result is right now. Like I said, in Canada, it doesn't work quite the same way. Usually they have what's called a buyout. So what you do is they prepay residuals based on the size of the production. And then
they prepay the residuals, so they'll make an estimation, or it's based on the budget?
Based on the budget. And they work out a deal, and that's a prepay of residuals for a certain amount of years. And then when it goes to digital media, or then there's different variables that I'm not exactly sure what they are right now, because again, they were remodeling in Canada as well. But I know the U.S., they have to renegotiate all these things because it's changed, completely changed.
Right.
Like whereas they used to sell all the DVDs and Blu-rays, it's no longer the case.
Yeah.
Right?
So is the distribution company the one prepaying? Because I would guess like the budget coming from
Good question. I don't like when we're working in Canada, for example, it's like we get paid by production. Everything goes through production. Now, what happens in the background, I'm not too sure of.
Got it. Okay.
I'm completely aware.
And I gotta ask, did it feel good to know that you looked a lot like Henry Cavill? That's not a terrible person to be a stunt double of.
Great. It felt. You know what? It felt even greater when I was on set and the director would come and tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey, Henry," and start a conversation until I turned around and be like, "Oh, it's Alain." So no, it was, you know what? It was a blessing. It was amazing. It's such a great experience. And you know what? The best part of it was a stunt boot camp. I got to work with great people, but I was exposed to many other stunt coordinators and many other stuntmen. And what that put me right in front of them. So it was like auditioning for all these people all at once on an ongoing basis. So then after we were done with Immortals, I had a whole bunch of opportunities to work elsewhere with other coordinators, which was great. It just made my circle much bigger. My network got bigger right away. And that created opportunities. And in the stunt industry, you are your product. Whatever you output, whatever you showcase is what your next job is going to, it guarantees your next job. So if you're outputting great stuff, if you're making the actor look good, if you're doing this in one takers, which is taking a lot less time on production, and you look great doing it, obviously you're noticed, and then that secures your next jobs, and you keep on doing that over and over again. Well, all of a sudden you're working all the time, which is great. I was blessed. I was prepared for it. I had great teachers, and you know what? I went out there and I put it all out, and I gave it 100%, and you know what? It paid off.
That's awesome, man. I had a chance. I think I may have talked about this in one of the other casts, but when I was in the last movie with Rampage, the Rock's newest movie that's coming out in 2018.
You worked on Rampage. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. But I was shocked, and I got a chance, which was really cool because I'm so interested in producing movies and learning that side of the business. I got to sit with all the producers in their tent and talk shop with them and kick around ideas and pick their brains, really. They had a staff of stuntmen that were there the whole time. I was there 11 days, and they had a guy who would do whatever I did. So I was in the morning getting tattoos on, getting my hair cut. He had to be dressed like me. He had to be tattooed, whatever, whether we were doing things or not, whether he was utilized or not.
You were a stunt double. You had a stunt double the whole time.
I had a stunt double the whole time, and then also I had done a commercial with Kenny Powers for K-Swiss, and they had a guy that was a stunt double, and they would like stand in. Instead of me standing on the spot when they're doing their thing, they'd have the guy standing there. And these are all jobs that like they are pre-budgeted, and so they're just going to use them. If we're doing an independent film, we'd be like, oh, well, we don't need you this day and day. See you later. Get out of here. But when they create a budget for a movie, they want to spend every bit of that because that's somebody's job is to figure out the budget. A line producer, they call it. They figure out the budget of the film, and if they're way off and you have an excess of money and you went and raised all this money and the investors are like, well, why'd you tell me you needed $100 million when you only used $89 million? And there's this excess. So I was asking the producers, I'm like, why are you having these stuntmen stand around, and they'll go in and do the dangerous stuff, jump out of a helicopter in the water or whatever the heck they're doing. But other than that, they're just there because they're being paid to be there.
Well, okay, so listen, there's a lot of layers when it comes to that. So number one is obviously they have a budget, they budget it all. Now, a lot of times, and especially in these big blockbusters, as much as they try to schedule things change on a dime. So they need a stunt double to be there the whole day, even though he's got just in case. Now they also have insurance. Because the insurance companies will not insure the production if they don't have a stunt double to do all this stuff. Because then they say, what happens if the actor gets injured? In that case, we have to stop production. That's going to cost everybody money. So they need to be able to keep on going, do all the dangerous stuff with a stuntman who is quote unquote expendable. He's a professional. Chances are he's taking the risk, but it's a calculated risk because he knows what he's doing. And then if something bad happens, if there's an accident, if he injures himself, they're not injuring the actor, which means, and there's a lot less chances of the stuntman getting injured. So that they can keep on producing. They can keep on going with production. So for insurance purposes, the stunt double is there. And then obviously, because of the scheduling and how it changes all the time, they don't know when he's going to go. I have friends that have been on set for 3 days not doing anything, waiting for their stunt to come up. They were scheduled, but it changed and changed again and it changed again. And until the third day where they actually did their stunt. On Suicide Squad, where I doubled Jai Courtney, I was there for the whole production. I worked out a lot of his fights with the stunt coordinators and the fight coordinators, and then I would teach him his fights. I was in charge of making sure all the stuntmen were ready for it. But Jai is great at action. So he would go on set, he would perform it. I would look at the monitors, I would give him feedback, say, hey, Jai, maybe adjust this, that, the other, adjust the stunt guys. And then boom, he does it again, and it's great. Until we get going through a plate glass where they say, okay, Alain, jump in and go through the plate glass, or they put me on a wire to fly and fall on a hard surface. All of a sudden, I'm doing that part. But I'm there for the entire production, waiting for these moments to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually curious if I can jump in here. When do you make that transition from being a stunt guy to an actor, and why do some people, like, one that always fascinated me was Jackie Chan. He would do a ton of his own stunts, even though he was like a mega star. And you know, there are situations like Rumble in the Bronx or whatever it was. I can't remember which one, and he jumped like 40 feet and broke his leg, or I can't remember all the details because it was years ago. Why was he still doing that? Is that just, it's kind of
it's his thing.
A guy thing, and or he wants it to look so perfect because he's so good that he's putting that extra into his movies?
No, but it's what makes him special. He found something that would make him special, and he was trained for it. He did the Peking opera. He's an athlete, and he says, you know what, I can do all this, and it's going to set me apart from everybody else. And he threw in comedy with it. He had his own style, and by doing all his own stunts the way he did, all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, this guy is unique. He's doing all his own stuff, and he's doing it for real. So I think that was to set himself apart. In my case, I mean, I was working on a project in Montreal with On-Set Stunts, and we did a showcase for this martial arts film. We did a live showcase of all the fights for Dimitri Logothetis, who was the producer and director. And at the end of that showcase, I had the opening fight, the closing fight with two of my friends. And he came to introduce himself. He talked to me for like 5 minutes, asked me what my background was, what my training background was, all this kind of stuff. The next day I got a call from casting, and they hadn't cast the lead role yet. The casting calls me and say, hey, listen, the director wants you to go in to audition for the lead. And I like, what? And yeah, the director requested specifically that he says, Alain Moussi, the guy that did the showcase, I want him to audition for the lead. So
this is Dimitri, right?
Dimitri Logothetis, who's the director and producer of
I've had a
Kickboxer
chance
Retaliation.
to get to know Dimitri. He's an awesome dude, and like a guy. I mean, talk about a guy that won't let anything stop him. We were kind of talking about this.
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna put his head to something. He's gonna make it happen. He owns all the IP for all the Kickboxer.
That's right.
Right.
So Dimitri says he gives him an opportunity. I prepped for 3 days with a friend of mine, Jason, who's an actor. By the way, I'm a rookie. I did drama in high school. I did not do a lot of work. I did some workshops getting into stunt work, but I'm not an experienced actor at all. So I prep as much as I can. I go in there. The casting agent, she really, really wanted me to do good because it was cool for her to cast somebody local. So we did the audition. The next day I get a call. I knew I was going to get a call, either a yay or nay. You know, you're waiting for that call. And for me, it's a dream come true. So I get the call and say, okay, Dimitri Logothetis wants to meet you for lunch tomorrow to talk to you about the project. So I'm like, okay, well, that must be positive if he wants to talk to me. So I meet him the next day, and he says, listen, Alain, I'm doing this film, and I'm going to do a lot of other martial arts films, and I want to relaunch the martial arts genre because it's lost right now. It doesn't exist.
I totally agree.
Right? So he says, this is what I want to do. I want to relaunch, and I'm going to relaunch with these movies that I'm going to do now, and then I have others that I want to do. I didn't know he had Kickboxer yet. And he says, what I want to do, I want to relaunch it with you. So not only do I want to do these movies with you, I want to let's get together and do a whole bunch of movies together. And I'm like, oh my God.
I think that's called getting discovered.
Right? I couldn't listen. My face is like, what? It's like, how does this happen? And I got into stunts in 2010. This is 2011.
Wow.
The next year, this is happening. So we get in there. I obviously accept the deal, and I'm like, absolutely, let's go. I didn't really care what the deal was at that point. I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever you want to do, let's do it. So we get started. 3 weeks in, it shuts down. The financier had problems with the bank, and they're trying to discover what's going on.
I had that happen as well, by the way.
You know, it's like you're blindsided.
No money, no show. That's the deal.
And you're blindsided. You don't know what's going on. So Dimitri, this happens to them, and all of a sudden, they discover, like actually 3 years later, this person was arrested by the FBI on his yacht because he had been defrauding Delta Airlines. There's a huge story online about it. You can read about it. It's like but we only discovered that 3 years ago, or three years later. After that, in 2014. Now, meanwhile, after it all shut down, I kept on doing stunt work. I was very successful. I was having fun, and I stayed in contact with Dimitri. 2 years later, Dimitri calls me, said, "Come to LA. You have to perform for my partners." So I fly to LA with my friend Max, and we put on this showcase, about 2 minutes, this fight scene. And I was meeting Ted Field that day, and Ted Field was watching, and I meet him, and he's very, soft-spoken and doesn't say much. He said, "Hey, how's it going?"
I know Ted Fields.
He didn't even look
He's
interested.
a billionaire.
Yeah, he is. He's a total billionaire. Comes in on his GTR. We're in Higan Machado's Beverly Hills Academy. That's where we did the audition. So we do this fight, and he's just what? And at the end, I had this acrobatic move where I go backwards, and as I swing backwards, I do a front flip and kick the guy under the chin as I'm flipping. So that was the last move. I told Max that, and this is after a minute and a half or 2 minutes of fighting. So I said, listen, if I feel too tired, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to follow my butt in front of the guy. And I'll signal you, and I'll do a different kick to finish up. And he says, okay. So at the end, we finish. I'm tired. I just look back at him, and I do this. I shake my head no, like I'm going to do something else. And he just looks at me and says, yes. And he does this. So I'm like, fuck, I don't have a choice. Ooh. Let's say that. Okay, good.
Fuck a duck, screw
we have an adult audience,
okay,
don't
good.
worry.
So then I'm like, okay, so I just go at it. I flip and I fall on my feet, and I'm surprised. I'm like, I'm so happy because I fell on my feet. Well, Ted Field got up. He's like, holy shit, this is Kickboxer. That's what we're doing. And he just was so excited about it. And
That's
then all
awesome.
of a sudden.
That was Ted Field?
That was Ted Field. He jumped up. Now, Dimitri sits back and he's like, just smiling.
He's like, I planned all this shit.
He's the puppet master, right? He's
Yep.
like, I knew this was going to happen because that's how he felt the first time. That's what he told me later. I felt that way the first time. So I knew that if he saw you do the same thing, he would not believe what he just saw, and he would just say, oh, we don't have a choice. We have to do this. This is the most authentic thing we can do with Kickboxer. And that's how I got the role. Now, a year later, they announced Batista, GSP, and myself as the lead. Now, until they announced that officially, or until I actually got the camera, in my mind, I was super happy. And I started training. I worked with a coach, an acting coach, and everything. I had to prepare. I prepared like a maniac. But I always said they could always shut this down. They could shut this down at any point in time. So until we finish shooting this thing, I'm like, I'm going to work hard and just keep on, staying on it. And we finished our New Orleans shoot. And then 6 months later, we did Thailand. And when it was all said and done, I was like, oh my God, we have a movie. And then it was just a matter of time till it comes out. But yeah, that's how it started, man. And that's my dream come true. The icing on the cake is that Van Damme was in the movie because he was my childhood hero. So all of a sudden, I have this scene, this In the Rain and Vengeance, where we fight each other. It's like the mentor fights the new guy, right? The mentee. And I remember after a take, they called cut, and I'm just like there, and the rain towers are going, and I'm looking, I just got kicked in the face by Van Damme or something. And then, but you sit
Tyson,
back,
Van Damme, line him up.
And I'm like, this is just incredible. Like, come on,
Surreal,
really
yeah.
surreal. It's amazing. It couldn't be. I couldn't have planned this better. This is amazing. Right?
It's really cool to see that. I mean, basically got discovered. Dimitri saw some talent. I mean, and unique. I saw today when we were teaching class, the things that you can do are pretty incredible. So that's rare, obviously. But being in a situation where you can see an opportunity, take an opportunity, and then follow through is awesome and amazing. Ted Fields is actually an interesting character himself. I'm not sure what his involvement is now with the Kickboxer, but he's a guy that I think he started some of the biggest musicians on the planet.
Yep.
Right? Was it Interscope? Or
Interscope. It was Interscope.
Interscope was his company, and then he became a movie producer. But he's also, it's funny that he was impressed by what you had, but he also considers himself a Muay Thai guy. He trains Muay Thai.
That's right.
He's a he was a race car guy. He blew up his hand, his hand is like a nub because it got hurt in a car wreck.
He's an adrenaline junkie.
I mean, he's an intense dude. Yeah. On top of being a very successful guy, so that's cool. You got to meet with him. I got to meet with him also, and then that was part of your story in getting to become. You're on your third movie now.
Yeah, it's like the producer of The Last Samurai, which I'm a huge fan of, and I'm like, oh my, this is a big deal, and Dimitri is a big deal. So we do that. Vengeance goes through. It does well. It does really well. But within months we're finished shooting, and we were going to jump into another actioner. Not Kickboxer 2. It was another one. We had another one planned. And all of a sudden I get a call a month later from Dimitri. He says, listen, it looks like we're going to do Kickboxer 2. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, we just wrapped a month ago. Like, the movie's not out yet. Like, what do you mean? And he says, no, we have a guy. He just saw the rough cut. He wants to do Kickboxer 2. So I just want to tell you, we're going to start getting ready. So let's talk about the story. Let's talk about all this. So we start talking. 2 months later, we have a script. And we started shooting early in the next year. We had to shoot like a scene in an MMA event. We had to shoot scenes with Tyson early on, and then we went to Thailand and we did some like it just started rolling right away. And then we're in Retaliation. Now the beauty of Retaliation is that Dimitri directed it. Now you got to understand, Dimitri is extremely passionate about relaunching the martial arts genre, and he's passionate about Kickboxer. He wants martial arts films to look bigger than what they've looked like over the last few years, because often enough they're treated as B movies. His goal is to make it look grand. He wanted to make it look like a real top-notch film.
I can vouch for it. I feel like definitely pulled that off.
Well, with the camera angles, with our great DP, with everything else. So because he's so passionate, he will go to the end of the earth to get it done the right way. And he will not skip on anything. He will take the time to do it, which is why I love working with him, because he wants to go all the way. He wants to go all the way in the action, in the story, in the photography, in everything. And that's what makes Retaliation amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And I can tell just from you talking about it that you're obviously super passionate about it too. What's the backstory? Like, where the fuck did you learn how to fight like this and do backflips? I mean,
I started martial arts after I saw Bloodsport. I saw Bloodsport when I was 10, and that got me interested in kicking and doing the splits. I saw Van Damme, muscles, kicks, splits, and I'm like, okay, that's who doesn't want to be like that? So I started doing jujutsu, Japanese jujutsu, and I became obsessed with kicking and doing the splits. That was my whole thing. And I did that for years. I got my black belt. And then after that, I started teaching, but I started doing shows, different shows on stage, different, I was part of this big international federation. And every year they had a convention and they would put on this big show. And me and my buddy Bobby would perform in this show every year. And we just got better and better and better. Now there was this guy we looked up to. His name was Bill Gatchell. He's in Ottawa. He's amazing. He's a great martial artist. And we would look up to him because he was like at the top of all the shows, would choreograph on music. So we kind of used him as an example to keep on pushing the envelope. Now what we wanted to do is get even bigger with all the acrobatics and the acrobatic throws. We would time it to music. We do all this until 1999, when we ended up like reaching the top. And after 1999, they would put us as a closing demonstration for all the shows, which was really cool. That was my experience growing up. When I was 18, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I got interested in that, and in kickboxing. Did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now I train with the Machado brothers. I've been training with the Machado brothers for, 10 years, I think. Now I started Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu about 5 years before I started training with the Machados, with Carlos. Carlos is my instructor. And I did kickboxing with Jean-Yves Thériault. And then I just kind of branched off in all kinds of styles.
Machado's in the movie, by the way.
Huh?
Hegan
is the movie. Yeah, I got Hegan in the movie. Yeah, I said, Hegan, show up on this day. You're going to be my coach in the movie. He says, okay.
That's right. You see so many people pop up in that movie. It's pretty cool.
Now that's Rob Hickman. Now Rob Hickman is another producer of ours, and
Rob's my connection also. He's a great dude.
He knows he's got connections in the UFC in the sports world. So he started bringing in all these big names in the sports world. Brian Shaw, which is the world's strongest man. He was a connection to Hafthor as well. He was Ronaldinho, the soccer star, and then a whole bunch of UFC fighters came into in the movie. So you can see cameos from tons of fighters. Now what that does, it makes it very legit. It adds a lot of social awareness to the movie. It's really cool. So Rob was the connection to bring all these different characters into the film. And now when you look at it, I always say it's a bunch of misfits. This movie's a bunch of misfits. You look at Tyson, Van Damme, me, you're like, how does this come together? It's ridiculous. Right. However, that's why it works. Yeah. Because it's all real people.
Yeah, it seems like misfits, but it's actually a bunch of badasses.
Dude, and the social media following of all the folks involved is pretty impressive too. It's cool to see. Rob was thinking about that, obviously, when you're talking about a budget that's not a massive budget, but the movie looks like it's a massive budget, and then you got to get the movie out there. I feel like in the new day and age, the influencers are a big part of entertainment. And
absolutely,
it's kind of interesting how that whole dynamic's starting. My question is, because I know I manifested a little bit of what became my life by just thinking about it. All my favorite movies were martial arts movies, and my sports, idols were boxers, and I visualized, being on TV and that kind of stuff. Did you visualize this thing, or is this something that's kind of happened? Did you manifest this life that you're living right now? And what were your thoughts and dreams when you were a kid? Was it to be the next Van Damme?
I wanted to be the biggest martial arts superstar. That's my dream. And I
really cool.
And I started doing it actually just myself with a friend. His name is Rob Baldwin. He's younger, like 5 years younger than I am, and he would do projects for high school. And he was good with video, and he would edit. So he asked me, can I put a fight scene together? And I would be a character in all his films, and I would put the fight scenes together, and that's how I started. And to me, I would spend all the time. I remember when I first opened my school in Ottawa. I opened a school when I was 23. In 2005, we started this online series called NX Files. It was one of the students' ideas. This was totally independent. Like, I would spend nights and weekends nonstop just getting people together and shooting this stuff. And at the beginning, everybody said, "Oh, Alain's wasting his time." He's wasting his time until they saw the production. They thought it was cool. But again, why does he waste his time with all this stuff? That's the comment that came up.
The naysayers.
Until I end up on Immortals, and then all the naysayers are like, "Oh, now they want to hang out."
Hey, I know that guy.
Right? Which is
That's
fine.
my second cousin's brother.
And you know what? And I'm okay with that. I'm good with that. And that's why I don't listen to naysayers. I just do what I do. I chase what I want. I visualize it, and I lead with. There's an expression that says "lead with the mind." It has to be in your mind before it appears, and that's manifesting. That's exactly it. So I've always believed that I had a spot there, and I wanted it.
How important is, and I'm curious because some people like to think about stuff and keep it to themselves and let it manifest, and then I told
Tell
you
everybody.
so. And how important is it to verbalize? Because for me, that's been a big part of my success. It makes things solid for me when I say, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make movies. I'm going to produce. I'm going to, win a world championship. I'm going to do this. Once you say it, then it becomes like, oh crap, I've opened my mouth. Now I got to follow through, and you got to verbalize, in my opinion. I mean, I know there's people out there that want to keep things quiet, but then who's going to keep you accountable? Who's going to ask you about it when, oh, how's that going with the movie thing? Yeah, for me, verbalizing is a big part of it. But what's your opinion on that?
I think I think it creates a commitment,
Yeah.
a commitment to yourself. I think when you verbalize something like that, it's not just for others; it's for yourself. Because once you've said it out loud, you start believing it for real, and you start doing all the steps that you need to do to make it happen. You start working harder. You start learning. You start educating yourself. You start moving in the right direction. And I think that that's what the first person you have to convince of anything is yourself. If you don't believe it, you're not going to follow through.
You can't fake yourself out.
No, you can fake it just so long, but it won't make anything happen. You have to convince yourself to the point where you believe so much that you're going to do everything you need to do. Now, once you believe, everybody else starts believing.
Absolutely.
Because you start doing everything you need to do to make it happen. And you would know this. You're a testament of it throughout your career.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm always trying to find, the parallels between what you're doing, what I'm doing, what Greg's done with in the business world, and all the other successful people we run into and have on the show, etc., is the commonalities. And I think, for me, verbalizing has been an important thing, but I've also seen a lot of guys, and this is my pet peeve, that are just verbalizing.
Well, then if you don't do anything, it doesn't work.
there's a great divide in the people that are talking and doing, and that are people that are just talking, and those people get laughed out of the park a lot of times. So it's funny to constructive criticism can be good. Verbalizing is great, but there's got to be the follow through. There's got to be a real internal belief. There's got to be a plan. There's got to be all these steps along the way. Were you a big guy on writing goals down growing up? I mean, my mom made me do it from a young age. Then I got better at it when I was older. And then once I was out of college, I even took it to another level of being more specific and thinking bigger. At what point in your life did you start knowing there's goals, verbalizing them? At what point did you ever write them down? Did you write them down?
To me, it all started with martial arts. When I trained in martial arts, your first goal is your yellow belt. As simple as that may seem, when you start training, you make goals. You say, I want to be a black belt one day. That's the ultimate goal. But then you have your first step. Your short-term goals is your belt levels, your colored belt. Without knowing it, without writing it down, without doing it, because you know that, you start getting, you start just operating that way. You set goals, you achieve them. You set goal, you achieve, and you just start doing that naturally. And I think later on, when somebody, I think it was my friend John Purchase, he would say that. It was that you should write everything down and start writing an action plan. And then I started listening to Tony Robbins a lot at a young age. I started listening to Tony Robbins.
Dude, Tony Robbins has touched so many people. It's crazy.
Dude, I would listen to that, and then I'm like, oh my God, I got to write things down. I got to set a plan. I got to do things. And I think, and I started doing that and then I would say it verbally, I would write it down, and I would write steps to what I need to do to get there, and absolutely. But I think, in the end, one thing that I took from all my experiences, and when I was 15 years old, somebody, it was Steve Nasty Anderson, used to be world champion in karate. I remember we were at a tournament with him, and he said this thing. He said, we were talking about luck. And I was actually not talking. I was just listening. I was 15 years old. So I was sitting down listening to the adults talk. So I remember they were talking about this dude, and they said, somebody said, he's so lucky. And Nasty says, what do you mean he's lucky? He's not lucky. He's not dumb luck. He's not where he is because he was lucky. He says that when preparation meets opportunity, that is luck. At 15 years old, I remember I heard that line, and I'm like, oh my God, that makes so much sense to me. Later on in life, I started, that's what I applied. So the day that Jean Frenette said, hey, Alain, we are going to audition you for stunts. The guys sit down, we're going to watch Alain audition. Had I not been ready for it, had I not trained with my friend JF, my friend Dennis Lafont, I trained with so many guys to get ready. That day, I was good to go. I was trained. I was ready to go, and I was ready to impress. The day that Dimitri came in and says, he's ready for the showcase, and he was watching something, I was ready that day. I was at my best, performing at my best. Every single time an opportunity came, it's like I was trained for it and prepared for it. So a lot of people, what they do, they wait for an opportunity to knock, and then they say, hey, how about I get started now?
Yeah, now it's time to prepare.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we see that in the fight game too, where guys will get way out of shape out on the off season, and then they'll spend 8 weeks trying to get in shape. It's like,
it doesn't work.
That's the dumbest thing. You got to spend your eight-week camp making sure you're not getting injured, fine-tuning things, getting some live looks.
But
and
you don't
stuff
start
like that.
getting skills, getting into training.
Oh, got a fight scheduled? All right, let's start getting prepped now.
Impossible.
That's how you get beat up.
Exactly. So the same. I think anything applies. Anything you want to achieve, it applies. So whatever you want to do, whether it's fighting, whether it's acting, whether it's stunt work, whether it's in business, you have to start preparing. You have to educate yourself this way. The day the opportunity knocks, you are ready for the opportunity. You're ready to seize the day, and you're ready to take it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Completely agree.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, I'd love to have you back down here to talk some more. I know we got to get you to a flight.
That's right.
We'll be cutting it close, but I believe you can do it. If you believe, then we're going to get you on that plane. If you don't believe, I don't know if it's going to happen.
Oh, it's going to happen. We're good. We're good.
Thanks again. Thanks for coming to show the guys some stuff today. Thanks for the good energy, the good mentality. I'm excited to see the next phase of things. I heard you say you manifested being the biggest martial artist star of all times, and you got a couple movies under your belt.
That's right.
That's a big step in the right direction. Any other questions for him, Greg?
Well, now you've said it officially on record that you're going to be the biggest action star ever. So.
On the biggest podcast.
Thousands of people will hear
on
it.
The planet, the Calicast.
And trust me, it's you know what? That's how you visualize. You say that, and then you go and you start making plans. And we have another movie ready to go now, which Urijah is going to be part of.
That's absolutely.
And then the Kickboxer 3 is right around the corner, and then we got a whole new franchise called Jiu-Jitsu ready to go as well. So I mean. We're going.
It's coming. So how can folks find you on social media?
Instagram at Alain Moussi, ALAIN So I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter at Alain Moussi, and on Facebook, Alain Moussi Official.
Nice. It's official.
It's official.
Thanks again, man. It was awesome having you in.
Thank you.
I do not want to get kicked by you.
Thanks for having me at the gym. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. And Greg, we'll catch these guys next time.
Yep.
Thanks for tuning in, folks. The Calicast. Entertainment, business, sport, nutrition, and everything under the sun.
All awesomeness.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.